Okay, you have to make people react before you stop feeling nervous to do this thing, so chuckle. Thank you very much. So I think every child, every young child, and every older child, and every child that becomes an adult should learn math playfully. They should see math as a fundamental part of the world we live in, and they should see it as a thing that helps them solve problems. It has intrinsic value because it's beautiful and it's fun and it opens doors, and it has exchange value because it allows you to make progress in your academic career and in your life beyond school. It's not happening, but it's time for a revolution because it needs to happen to get these kids ready to go out and thrive. And the people who can do it are you, because you're early childhood educators, and the time to do it is now. And I say it's you who can do it, who can lead this charge, because in my lifetime, the only thing that I can look at as transformative in education is the development of early literacy. And you people are at the forefront of that, and you have accomplished that. You've led us in that, and we're thankful. Nowadays, every child, virtually every child, learns to read. And even those peers of mine who grew up in a very humble town and who themselves were not surrounded with books, I see them now in generations forward. They're reading to their kids. They're listening to their kids babble. They're understanding that kids are making sense of the world through that. And that's because we've said, hey, no longer are we going to let people be illiterate. We're going to teach them to read, and we're going to value their language and give them attentive adults surrounding them and supporting that process. It's time to do that in early math, and the people who can help us with that are you. Now, what does that mean? Math is not the same as literacy. We use it in different ways in different places. So what does it look like? I want to talk to you about my friend Sylvie and give you a little context for how I see this. Sylvie is 3.5 years old, not 3, and she's an adorable little cherub of a human. She lives in South Seattle in Renton area, if you're familiar with that area, and I've gotten to know her over the last few months. She lives with her mom and her grandma, who she calls abuelita, because her grandma is a immigrant from the Dominican Republic and is herself a language learner. And they have a lovely life. I mean, they're doing everything right and with very few resources. It's a loving home. Mom and grandma get on well. They work hard. And on a regular day, this is what it looks like. Sylvie wakes up about 7 o'clock, and mom is rushing around to get out the door. She's got a 9-to-5 job and a big commute to get there. So she wakes her up just in time to give her a kiss and say goodbye. Abuelita gets her ready. They brush the teeth, brush hair, wash your face, have breakfast, eat together. Just as it happens in my house, rushed and hurried and collaborative and all that beautiful stuff. And then later on, they have a little quiet time. They read books, they hang out, play games. They might sneak in a TV show, though mom doesn't really like to know that happened. Then they have a quick lunch, and Abuelita has to go off to her part-time job. She works at a restaurant not far from their home. She walks with Sylvie to a neighbor's home a couple blocks away. Sylvie plays in this home child care setting with the other kids in the neighborhood, and they have a snack. And then a couple hours later, mom picks up the grandma. They pick up Sylvie on the way home. They come home. They make a quick meal. Usually, almost always, it's mac and cheese because it's quick and easy, and that's what Sylvie demands. And then they do their bedtime routine, okay? As you can see, as I've characterized that day, it's highly functional, right? Highly collaborative. And clearly, these people are doing it right. There's just love and functionality. You can just feel it around these folks. But you didn't see me highlight anything about mathematics. It's not a very prevalent factor in their lives. And it's not because they don't want to. It's because they don't see it as a thing they do. Mom and grandma themselves never had really great experiences in school, so they think, I don't really want to push on that. And by the way, that's the school's job. And Sylvie's just doing what she does. She's this beautiful little girl going about playing and doing her thing. But let's imagine that we go back and we can run through that day again, and that these women and this little girl are equipped with tools and with a message that, hey, math is important, math is fun, math is critical to all those things you do every day. Think about those day-to-day processes of brushing teeth or brushing hair. You can count how many strokes per side per tooth. You can set a timer and see if you've done 2 minutes of brushing on each side, as my dad did to me when I was a little boy. Cooking, mac and cheese. You can figure out how long does it take for that water to boil. We could set a timer. And someone's got to measure that 1/4 cup of skim milk to mix it in to make the recipe. Those are all very easy, convenient, everyday things that if the family had that view that, hey, you know what, we ought to be teachers of math, we ought to be learners with Sylvie, they would do it, and they could do it. And if you think about just a little bit of resource you could put into this household that you could do to support her, Sylvie's math learning, think about it. With a little language assistance around math so that grandma can talk about mathematics with Sylvie in Sylvie's first language, she could go a long ways. With some guidance about the kinds of games you put in the living room, that you put in the child care center, we could do a lot of things. Finally, they read a lot of books, and they read books with an eye towards the story. But what if you just took all those same books, all those wonderful childhood stories, and you read them with an eye towards numeracy? You don't even have to pick a math book. Pick a book that allows you to do some counting and some analysis and some sorting and organizing. These are all basic fundamental things that, with a little bit of support, a little bit of guidance, I think we can all learn to do with children. So sadly, that's not what's happening for Sylvie or for most of her peers. In fact, we now have scientific evidence. You remember the studies back in the day we used to talk about literacy? In wealthy homes, there was a large vocabulary and lots of language and talking to kids, and in poorer homes, there was less of that. Well, now we have the same finding, a scientific observation in math talk. Wealthy folks are talking about math and numbers with their kids, and folks with fewer resources are not. But they can, and they need to, and we need to help them do that. So I want to enlist your help today. I want to tell you first what we're doing at Washington STEM to address this, and then I want to give you a couple specific things that I hope you'll leave here thinking, hey, I can do something about this. So at Washington STEM, we've made a series of grants throughout the state in organizations that are working on this problem. There are 3 themes in the work. One is providing culturally sensitive guidance. That means language support, that means putting resources into homes that don't have a super high level of literacy, but helping them use these tools to engage with their children. It means building resources and experiences that are fundamentally about family engagement, bringing families into events and creating structures for them to participate together. And third, we're working on scaling this stuff. So specifically here in Eastern Washington, the way that looks is we work with Ready Kindergarten, which is an organization in Tri-Cities, and they're scaling out culturally relevant early math materials in Chelan and Douglas counties. Working in families that are bilingual and in rural communities. We're also working with the Regional Education Lab, a federal entity, to put on a series of Train the Trainers workshops on math attitudes. That'll be happening in this community, in Spokane, through our Spokane STEM network, and in the Yakima Valley, through the Yakima Valley Network, and also in the Wenatchee Valley, through the Wenatchee Valley Network. So those 3 activities will be coming in the next quarter, and I hope you'll find out how to get involved and become a leader in helping people have a positive attitude and think about how to build that positive attitude among our youngest learners. And finally, we've invested in the state level activity through the education service districts, the 9 big entities throughout the state, to support the early learning fellows. Maybe some of you are early learning fellows. There will be math components for that work, and we are very focused and very excited about that work and hope you'll get on board with it. So that's what we're doing at Washington STEM, and I guess the thing I'll ask that you do is that you go out and you talk to your peers and you talk to your friends. And when you go back to your Thanksgiving table, you give the message that children need to talk about and engage in mathematics, and there are easy ways to get the ball rolling. And when that loquacious aunt or that strident nephew or whoever it is at your Thanksgiving table next month starts piping off about, hey, math isn't that great, or I had this lousy math teacher, just give them a gentle bump in the ribs and tell them the kids are paying attention and they need to hear positive messages about this so that kids can learn these positive attitudes and skills and make math go to work for them. Thank you.